In 2024, DC Comics introduced a radical reimagining of its iconic universe with the launch of the Absolute Universe, an imprint overseen by writer Scott Snyder. This new continuity, designated as Earth Alpha, operates within the broader DC multiverse and presents modernized versions of beloved heroes within a reality shaped by the malevolent influence of Darkseid. Unlike the primary DC universe, which is often seen as being influenced by Superman's hopeful energy, the Absolute Universe is steeped in challenge and turmoil, where even the most powerful heroes find themselves as underdogs in a world tilted towards darkness. Within this altered landscape emerges the Absolute Joker, a chillingly distinct iteration of the Clown Prince of Crime. This version is not defined by manic laughter or a history intrinsically tied to Batman's creation. Instead, he is a billionaire industrialist who has never been heard to laugh, earning him the sardonic moniker. His power stems from unimaginable wealth and a worldly training that has honed him into a formidable force, inverting the traditional power dynamic with a Batman who lacks the familiar Wayne fortune. Furthermore, the Absolute Joker has already established himself as a psychopathic supervillain, operating with a strategic mind and engaging in acts of profound depravity such as the horrifying consumption of infant life force. This report delves into the 10 paramount reasons why the Absolute Joker stands as the ultimate villain within the Absolute Batman universe, a figure whose unique characteristics and terrifying methods perfectly embody the dark and inverted nature of this reality. The dynamic between Batman and his rogues gallery has long been defined by the concept of duality, with many of his adversaries serving as dark reflections of the Caped Crusader himself. The relationship between Batman and the Joker, in particular, has often been portrayed as a twisted form of yin and yang, where their contrasting moral codes and motivations are intrinsically linked. Numerous interpretations have even explored the notion that the Joker and Batman are two sides of the same coin, separated only by a single bad day. In the Absolute Universe, this mirroring takes a fascinating and inverted turn. The Absolute Batman is not the billionaire heir familiar to most. Instead, he is a working-class hero, a product of Gotham's harsh streets. Growing up in the notorious crime alley, Bruce Wayne in this reality never knew the privilege of the Wayne fortune. His father, a high school teacher, tragically fell victim to a mass shooting, leaving a young Bruce without the traditional support system. This Batman is defined by his resourcefulness and a practical, engineering-oriented mind, focused on enacting societal change through his actions. His heroism is born not of inherited wealth, but of a deep-seated desire to improve the city he calls home. Conversely, the Absolute Joker stands as a towering figure of immense wealth, a billionaire industrialist whose influence stretches across the globe. Ranking among the wealthiest individuals on the planet, his financial power dwarfs even the most extravagant depictions of the traditional Joker's resources. This stark reversal of their economic statuses immediately establishes a compelling dichotomy, where the Joker now occupies the position of power and influence that Batman traditionally holds. This inversion leads to the intriguing concept of the Absolute Joker as a twisted Bruce Wayne. He represents a potential dark path for Bruce, a vision of what he could have become if he had succumbed to the allure of wealth and control rather than dedicating himself to justice. The Absolute Joker embodies the corrupting potential of unchecked power, using his vast fortune to fuel unimaginable cruelty, standing in stark opposition to the working-class hero striving to save Gotham. This evil twin dynamic adds a profound personal and philosophical layer to their inevitable conflict, making the Absolute Joker a uniquely compelling and ultimate villain within this inverted reality. In the Absolute Universe, the Joker's power is not rooted in madness or anarchy, but in a staggering level of wealth, positioning him as one of the most affluent individuals on the planet. Ranking within the top 0.005% of the world's richest, his fortune eclipses even the vast resources occasionally attributed to the traditional Joker. This unprecedented financial might grants him an unparalleled level of influence and reach. His ownership of a semiconductor manufacturing plant, a global enterprise akin to Philips, serves as a tangible symbol of his immense fortune and legitimate business dealings, providing a veneer of respectability that further complicates any attempts to dismantle his operations. This extraordinary wealth allows the Absolute Joker to operate on a truly global scale, exerting influence far beyond the confines of Gotham City. His brief appearance at the end of Absolute Batman #1 depicts him overseeing his distant manufacturing plant, highlighting his ability to manage vast enterprises across continents. This global reach extends to his clandestine activities within Gotham, where he secretly funds and orchestrates the chaos unleashed by gangs like the Party Animals, demonstrating his capacity to manipulate events from afar without without directly involving himself. This ability to orchestrate destruction on a grand scale, coupled with his legitimate business empire, makes him a far more systemic and challenging threat than the traditional Joker. Furthermore, his immense wealth presents a significant obstacle to the absolute Batman, potentially allowing him to buy his way out of anything. Unlike the traditional dynamic where Batman's financial resources often provide him with an edge, the absolute Joker's fortune could enable him to evade legal repercussions, fund sophisticated defenses, and generally operate with a level of impunity that his traditional counterpart never possessed. This forces the less affluent absolute Batman to rely on his intellect, physical prowess, and the loyalty of his allies, creating a compelling underdog narrative where ingenuity must triumph over overwhelming financial power. The contrast with the traditional Joker, whose resources typically derive from criminal activities and are often fleeting and unstable, further underscores the unique challenge posed by the absolute Joker's seemingly limitless wealth. A defining characteristic that immediately distinguishes the absolute Joker from his myriad counterparts is his complete and utter silence. He never laughs. This deliberate departure from the traditional Joker's maniacal laughter, a sound synonymous with chaos and terror, establishes the absolute Joker as a fundamentally different kind of menace. His lack of mirth is so pronounced that it has ironically earned him the moniker the Joker, a sarcastic acknowledgement of his sinister nature despite the absence of his trademark joviality. This silence speaks volumes about his psychological state and the nature of his villainy. The absence of laughter contributes to a chillingly different kind of terror, a cold, calculated, and arguably more unsettling presence. It suggests a level of control and deliberate intent that is perhaps more disturbing than the traditional Joker's often impulsive and theatrical outbursts. Without the outward expression of manic glee, the absolute Joker's actions take on a more sinister and purposeful quality. His silence might indicate a profound lack of empathy, a complete absence of joy, even in inflicting suffering, making him seem less human and more akin to an inexorable force of nature. This stands in stark contrast to the traditional Joker, whose maniacal laughter has become an iconic element of his persona. This laughter often accompanies his violent acts, serving as a disturbing punctuation mark to his madness and a chilling reminder of his warped sense of humor. While unsettling, this laughter also carries an element of theatricality, a performative aspect to his insanity. The absolute Joker's silence, however, implies a deeper, perhaps even sociopathic detachment. His terror is not broadcast through unsettling sounds, but emanates from his cold, unwavering demeanor and the horrifying implications of his calculated actions. This silent menace can be perceived as even more terrifying, hinting at a level of profound and unwavering evil that lies beneath the surface. The absolute Joker distinguishes himself not only through his immense wealth and chilling silence, but also through his more strategic and indirect approach to villainy. Unlike the traditional Joker, who often takes center stage in his chaotic schemes, the absolute Joker appears to operate from behind the scenes, subtly influencing events and orchestrating chaos through other villains. He has yet to directly unleash widespread mayhem upon Gotham, seemingly preferring to allow other malevolent forces to pave the way for his ultimate plans. This suggests a calculated and patient approach, prioritizing long-term objectives over the immediate, impulsive acts of chaos that often characterize his traditional counterpart. His connection to Black Mask and the party animals in the initial story arc of Absolute Batman provides a clear example of this manipulative strategy. The Absolute Joker secretly funds this gang of anarchists, utilizing their destructive tendencies to sow discord and weaken Gotham's foundations. Black Mask's own nihilistic ideology and desire to see the city consumed by chaos align with the Joker's potential long-term goals, making him a useful pawn in a larger game. This demonstrates the Absolute Joker's ability to leverage other villains, exploiting their motivations and resources to further his own agenda without exposing himself directly, showcasing a higher level of strategic thinking than often seen in the traditional Joker. Furthermore, the chilling conclusion of the first arc sees the Absolute Joker commanding his manservant to summon Bane. This action strongly suggests a long-term plan involving a hierarchy of villains under his influence. Bane, with his formidable physical prowess and history of breaking Batman, represents a significant future threat that the Absolute Joker is strategically positioning. This indicates a grander scheme beyond the initial chaos orchestrated by the party animals, hinting at a more complex and dangerous plan for Gotham's future that involves the calculated deployment of various villainous elements. This contrasts sharply with the traditional Joker, who often prefers to work alone or engages in more direct and impulsive acts of chaos. While the traditional Joker has formed alliances, they are typically short-lived and prone to betrayal, driven by his own unpredictable nature and immediate immediate desires. The Absolute Joker's more strategic and indirect manipulation of other villains marks a significant departure and elevates his status as an ultimate manipulator within this universe. Perhaps the most profoundly disturbing aspect of the Absolute Joker, and a key reason for his ultimate villain status, is the horrifying method he employs to sustain himself, revealed in the chilling conclusion of Absolute Batman number 6. This iteration of the Clown Prince of Crime is depicted as withered and cadaverous, his vitality seemingly dependent on the gruesome act of draining the life force from infants. The imagery of babies attached to him, their life essence flowing into his own decrepit form, is described as the most sickening yet, and absolutely demented, establishing a new benchmark for cruelty even within the Joker's already infamous history. This act transcends the typical violence and mayhem associated with the Joker, venturing into a realm of deeply unsettling and unnatural depravity. It establishes him as a villain, willing to exploit the most innocent and vulnerable beings for his own selfish gain, a level of monstrousness that is difficult to fathom. The motivation behind this horrifying act appears to be purely self-serving, to restore his own fading vitality and prolong his existence. This pursuit of self-preservation at the cost of innocent lives underscores a profound lack of empathy and a chilling disregard for any semblance of morality, even by the Joker's standards. This motivation, devoid of any ideological justification or even a twisted sense of humor, is terrifying in its stark and selfish simplicity. This method of sustaining himself stands in stark contrast to the traditional Joker's crimes, which, while often heinous and causing mass suffering, rarely involve such a direct and personal act of life draining. While the traditional Joker has engaged in countless acts of murder, torture, and psychological torment, the systematic exploitation and consumption of infant life force for personal rejuvenation represents a uniquely disturbing form of cruelty not typically associated with the character. Even his most infamous acts, such as the murder of Jason Todd or the paralysis of Barbara Gordon, while undeniably horrific, stem from different motivations and employ different methods. This stark departure highlights the uniquely monstrous nature of the Absolute Joker's methods, solidifying his position as an ultimate villain who redefines the very concept of cruelty within the Absolute Batman universe. In the Absolute Universe, the dynamic between Batman and the Joker is further amplified by their diametrically opposed philosophies and goals. The Absolute Batman is portrayed as a more idealistic and grounded hero, driven by a desire to enact meaningful societal change within Gotham. He is depicted as a young man determined to rise above the challenges of his working-class background, using his ingenuity and physical prowess to combat the corruption that plagues the city. This Batman sees himself as a force for positive change, striving to build a better Gotham for its citizens. His core motivation is rooted in hope and a belief in the potential for improvement, even in the face of overwhelming darkness. Conversely, the traditional Joker is often characterized by a deeply nihilistic philosophy, believing in the inherent chaos and meaninglessness of existence. He views morality as a flimsy construct, a bad joke that crumbles under pressure, and believes that humanity is only ever one bad day away from descending into madness. His actions are frequently driven by a desire to expose this perceived truth, to introduce anarchy and upset the established order, pushing individuals to their breaking points to prove his cynical worldview. The Absolute Joker, potentially an evil Bruce Wayne figure, might embody a different facet of nihilism, one born not from societal rejection, but perhaps from a profound disillusionment with the trappings of wealth and power. His desire to tear down the established world, even though he sits atop its financial hierarchy, could stem from a jaded perspective on the emptiness of privilege and a desire to unleash chaos simply because he possesses the means to do so. This contrast sets the stage for a fundamental ideological clash. While Absolute Batman fights for a brighter future for Gotham, the Absolute Joker, whether driven by traditional nihilistic chaos or a more nuanced disillusionment, represents a force actively undermining that hope. His funding of destructive elements like the party animals and his parasitic draining of life force from the innocent symbolize a direct assault on the very ideals that drive Batman's heroic endeavors in this darker universe. A significant departure from many traditional Joker origin stories is the established fact that the Absolute Joker has already evolved into a psychopathic mythic supervillain long before encountering the absolute Batman. He is described as a generational billionaire and a deadly killer even before his formal emergence as the Joker, indicating a pre-existing history of villainy that is not directly tied to an encounter with the Dark Knight. This independence suggests a different set of motivations and a more self-contained origin for his malevolence. Furthermore, the absolute Joker's formidable skills and global reach are attributed to his training with the League of Shadows assassins. He is said to have studied under and ultimately eliminated both Henri Ducard and the League itself, demonstrating a level of martial arts and strategic prowess that rivals, if not surpasses, that of Batman. This elite training provides a concrete explanation for his competence and influence, making him a physical and tactical match for Batman in a way that many traditional Joker iterations are not. This pre-existing psychopathy and specialized training suggests that the absolute Joker's motivations are not solely a reaction to Batman's existence. Instead, they likely stem from his own established twisted psychology and potentially a deep-seated disillusionment with his life of privilege. His bitterness and desire to dismantle the established order might have been brewing long before Batman's emergence in Gotham. This independence from the traditional hero-villain creation narrative makes the absolute Joker a more self-sufficient and potentially more unpredictable force of evil, driven by his own established darkness rather than solely by his relationship with Batman. In the absolute universe, the established power dynamic between Batman and the Joker is dramatically inverted, creating a unique and formidable challenge for the Dark Knight. A defining characteristic of the absolute Batman is his lack of the traditional Wayne fortune, making him an underdog operating with limited resources. Growing up in the harsh realities of Crime Alley, this Bruce Wayne relies on his own ingenuity, engineering skills, and the support of a close circle of childhood friends, rather than vast financial backing. Conversely, the absolute Joker is a figure of immense wealth and influence, a generational billionaire who possesses the kind of resources and technological advantages traditionally associated with Batman. The writer of Absolute Batman even teases that this Joker has the resources and the cave, who has the vehicles in this, further emphasizing the complete role reversal. This staggering power imbalance positions the absolute Joker as a monumental obstacle for Batman. The hero's usual strategies, often reliant on his superior technology and financial might, are rendered ineffective against an adversary who now holds those very advantages. Furthermore, the absolute Joker's training with the League of Shadows elevates him to a level of physical and tactical competence that surpasses many traditional iterations of the character. This makes him not only a financial powerhouse, but also a formidable physical threat, capable of challenging Batman on multiple fronts. This unprecedented power imbalance, where the Joker wields both immense wealth and elite training against an underdog Batman, makes him a more significant and challenging antagonist than perhaps any other Joker iteration across the multiverse. Batman's struggle against this seemingly insurmountable foe, relying on his core skills and unwavering determination, defines the central conflict of the absolute Batman universe. The absolute Joker's presence in the absolute Batman universe is not a fleeting threat, but rather a carefully constructed, long-term menace. His storyline is being deliberately built up, with subtle hints and teases woven throughout the early issues of Absolute Batman, creating a sense of anticipation for his full emergence as a major antagonist. While he made a brief cameo in the debut issue and a more significant appearance in issue number 6, the creators have indicated that the true depth of his character and his overarching plans for Gotham will not be fully revealed until later in the series, around issues number 13 or 14. This gradual unveiling suggests a complex and far-reaching vision of malevolence that extends beyond immediate acts of chaos. The horrifying revelation of his life-draining activities in issue number 6 hints at a potential long-term strategy driven by a desire for extended life, or even immortality. This pursuit could fuel his actions and influence his plans for Gotham, potentially involving further exploitation of the innocent and vulnerable. Furthermore, his command to summon Bane at the end of the first arc strongly indicates a multi-phase strategy involving a network of villains under his control. Bane's introduction suggests a potential physical confrontation with Batman, or a calculated takeover of Gotham's criminal underworld orchestrated by the Joker from the shadows. Given his immense wealth, the absolute Joker possesses the means to systematically corrupt and control Gotham in ways that the traditional Joker could only fantasize about. He could leverage his financial power to manipulate political systems, control vital infrastructure, and exert influence over the media, bending the city to his will in a more insidious and pervasive manner. The mention mention of his ownership of Arc M further suggests a potential control over Gotham's criminal justice system, allowing him to manipulate the very institutions designed to contain him. The writer of Absolute Batman has even teased that the Absolute Joker will challenge Batman in ways bigger than anything we've seen before, hinting at a scale of threat and complexity that surpasses previous Joker storylines. This long-term vision of malevolence, coupled with his unique power set, positions the Absolute Joker as a truly ultimate villain with the potential to reshape Gotham in his own twisted image. The Absolute Batman universe is fundamentally defined by the pervasive influence of Darkseid's energy, creating a reality that is inherently darker, more challenging, and where heroes are often outmatched underdogs. In this world where evil holds a dominant position and heroism is a struggle against overwhelming odds, the Absolute Joker emerges not just as a reimagined villain, but as a perfect embodiment of this twisted reality. His unique characteristics, his immense wealth, chilling silence, strategic manipulation, and horrifying methods are all amplified and contextualized by the Darkseid-influenced nature of this universe. His ruthless pursuit of power and vitality through the exploitation of the innocent, particularly the life-draining of infants, aligns perfectly with a universe where darkness thrives and morality is seemingly inverted. His cold and calculated demeanor, devoid of the traditional Joker's manic glee, reflects a potential absence of conventional morality in this reality shaped by a tyrannical force. Furthermore, his position as a wealthy elite oppressing a working-class hero mirrors the stark power imbalances that might exist in a world subtly controlled by a being like Darkseid. The Absolute Joker's existence as a billionaire industrialist who commits monstrous acts embodies a profound corruption of societal power, a theme that resonates deeply within a universe forged by a tyrannical entity. He represents the terrifying potential for absolute power to be wielded for the most selfish and horrific ends in a world where hope is a constant struggle. In this context, the Absolute Joker is not merely an anomaly but a natural, albeit extreme, consequence of his environment. He stands as the antithesis of everything Absolute Batman strives to achieve in a world where heroism is an uphill battle against overwhelming odds. Therefore, the Absolute Joker is not just a reimagined villain, he is the ultimate villain of the Absolute Batman universe, a perfect embodiment of its dark and inverted nature.